Hey guys, good to see you again. It is February and I'm so happy you're here. I just want to show you, for those of you that are doing the cookie kit, what is inside of the kit. So we will go through that real quick. We've got our icing. I'm going to set that aside. All of our cookies. Our featured flavor today is salted brownie. So delicious if you're a chocolate person. And then you're gonna find this little packet here. I'm gonna just take that out, set my box aside. I'm gonna tell you what's in there. So let's open this up. We've got our practice sheet. I'm just gonna set that in front of me. A little practice sheet here. We've got a photo of our cookies. I like to keep that in front of me so that I can kind of just see what I am doing. A little scribe tool, a paintbrush. I'm going to set those aside. Here's a little heart template, which I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that later. We've got a piece of parchment and a little template here that we're going to trace later, so set that aside, as well as some extra piping bags in case you cut your hole too big. So we have that all ready for you, and here we go. So while I show you this practice sheet, you're going to go ahead and take your icing out. You're going to want to give it a good massage. A couple things that you want to have with you is going to be a good pair of sharp scissors, as well as a paper towel. I really like to dampen my paper towel because royal icing tends to get crusty, so I like mine nice and moist so that all the crusties can land on here. Yeah, so go ahead and give your bags a massage while I demo this practice sheet for you, just like this. Also, something that will be helpful for this particular set is going to be a fan, like a table fan. Anytime you're doing cookies at home, it's really great to have a fan to just kind of speed crust your cookies. So maybe see if you have a table fan available, but go ahead and just give your bags a massage. I'm going to show you the first part of our practice sheet. So this is probably the most important part of class, and that is how you cut your piping bag. We are going to practice with our blue icing, so make sure you have that color out and ready to practice with. But the way that I cut my bag is I hold the seam up toward the ceiling. So there's a seam on the bag, it's facing up, and it's centered, and then I flatten the tip with my finger. When I cut my bag, so don't cut yours yet, just watch this first and then you guys can go for it. But the way that I cut my bag is I cut a really tiny hole, so small that I don't even know if I cut it or not. That is how small I want you to go, because it's better to cut too small than too big. If you cut it too small, you can always cut more. But if you cut it too big, it's really hard. You have to rebag your icing. So don't cut yours yet. I'm going to show you the first part of this practice sheet, but anytime I cut my bag, I squeeze the air out onto my paper towel. Now my goal is to get my blue line as thick as this black line. I already know that it's a little too small, so I'm going to recut. So if you need to recut your bag, center the seam again, flatten the tip, and then just a smidge more. I hold my bag by pinching the tape with my thumb and my pointer finger. Even though that tape is there, it won't prevent the icing from coming out the top. So I'm always keeping that closed, and then I twist the pod so it's nice and tight, okay? So I like to hold my wrist steady, and I'm holding my bag kind of at a slant. I touch my tip to the paper. So my tip is touching. I then squeeze, and as soon as the icing hits the paper, I'm going to lift my tip about an inch high and just let the icing fall on the line. Because I'm lifting high, I'm going to release the pressure a little early and then lay the line down. If your line is breaking, that means you're not squeezing hard enough. If it's squiggly, either your hole is too small or you're squeezing too hard. And real quick, I just want to show you again just how high I hold my tip so you can see up close, because you don't want to drag your tip on there. You really want to lift it. So let's see if I can show you. My tip touches, I squeeze, I lift, and I just let the icing fall on the line. Release the pressure, lay the line down. Kind of hard to do holding up, but you get the idea. So go ahead and work on those lines, pause this video, and then when you're done with the lines, go ahead and look back up. I'm going to show you the rest of our practice sheet. I'm going to get that one out of there because it's messy. Okay, so pause it, work on the lines, and then come back to the practice sheet. For the waves and the swirls, same thing. I start by touching my tip on the paper, squeeze just like before, but this time I am going to go a little bit slower, meaning I'm squeezing just a touch less. I'm looking a little bit ahead of where I want that icing to fall. And then when I'm ready to stop, I always release the pressure, then lay the line down. One thing I forgot to mention is you don't want any crusties on your tip, so I'm often just giving it a little swipe here and there. Same thing here, tip is touching, lift, looking a little bit ahead of where I want that icing to fall, taking my time, breathing, and then when I'm ready to stop, I release the pressure, lay the line down. With the circles, we don't have any circles today, so you guys lucked out, but I do want you to practice these. You're just going to go even slower. Okay, you're still going to look a little bit ahead of where you want that icing to fall. You're just going to slow it down a bit. Really just focus on that right amount of pressure, squeezing just hard enough for that line to not break. Having control of that icing, release the pressure, lay that line down. And the very last thing I want to show you is going to be our heart. And what I'm showing you here is that every edge or corner or point of your cookie, you want to put your tip down, and this is how you get really nice sharp edges and how you regain control of the icing. So I'll show you what I mean. Tip is touching, I squeeze, I lift, I go around until I get to this point here, which we'll be doing a lot. You're going to be putting your tip down, okay? And then you start where you left off, lift up again, and finish the line. So this you'll do several times during class today. Yeah, so when you're done with that, you're going to fold this in half, and then we'll start our cookies. If any point in class you cut the hole of your bag too big, like whereas in the end of class we're doing the little detail on the roses, if your red hole is too big or any other hole, I want to show you real quick how to rebag your icing. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut a big hole out of the bag. You're going to take your empty bag and you're just going to insert it into the new bag, just like this. You're going to squeeze the tail of the old bag and squeeze the outside of the new bag, and I'm just going to pull this tape out while I'm squeezing the icing into this bag here, and then tie this in a knot. So that's how you're going to rebag if your hole is too big at any point. And you have 3 extra bags, so just keep that in mind. You definitely want to try to leave one for the red at the end, but yeah, thanks. Now that you're done with your practice sheet, we're going to go ahead and start on our royal icing transfers. So I lied, we're not doing our cookies yet. We're going to get these transfers done first so that we can get them drying. So if you have that table fan, this will really speed the process of the drying. It will take a while for these big hearts to dry and these little roses. So you might not even need to wait a few hours. Here in class, I have something called a dehydrator so that it speeds through just the drying process of the hearts. So you may need to wait like a few hours before you can peel the hearts off. But what I like to do for transfers, the reason I like to do them is because we can trace things, which I have the hearts here. We can trace them and they're all going to look the same. Yeah, and then you can stick them on anywhere. So I have mine holding down with a clipboard because I'm going to be putting these in front of a fan, but you don't need a clipboard. It's not necessary, but I'm going to tuck this little template underneath the parchment, so it's right underneath, and I'm going to start by outlining my hearts. I actually am going to show you this first part here. We're going to start outlining our first cookies, and then we'll go back to this template here. So again, my seam is centered, I flatten the tip, cut a small hole straight across. One thing that I forgot to mention is when I'm demoing here on the screen, if you can just make sure to watch, because I don't want you to miss anything important. As long as you watch all the instruction, you should be good to go at your own pace. So just pause when you need to, but definitely watch and listen to all the instruction, especially this particular set. So here we go. I am going to start off by outlining 4 hearts. Now I do realize there are only 2 hearts here, but we need 4 total. So I'm just going to drag this paper down, and I'll show you what I mean. So I have a starting point, my tip is touching, I lift up. Whoop, my bag just broke. That's okay though, guys. Okay, I can show you this now. If you mess up anytime you're outlining your cookie, you're just going to wipe it off, okay, and start over. So I like to use this little scribe tool to wipe it off. That's just lovely, guys. That's just lovely. Okay, let's try this again. So when you're outlining your cookies, anytime you have something like that happen where your bag has a little air pocket, all you're gonna do is just wipe it off and start again. So my tip is touching, I lift up, and my tip goes down. You can actually go inside of this heart. It's going to be covered, but it's just how I create a nice curve. If I stop abruptly here in the middle, I just can't get as nice of a curve. So you're gonna do this 4 times, and you're going to let this outline crust before we fill it in. So while we're letting these outlines crust, I'm gonna show you how to outline and flood your first cookies. So now I'm gonna bring this down and do my other 2 hearts. So tip is touching, squeeze, lift, and tip down. So again, we're just starting with outlining these hearts. We're not doing anything with the roses yet. We're going to let these outlines crust, and then we're going to outline and flood our first cookie, and we'll come back to this in just a minute. So I want to show you how to do your first cookie. So the first cookie we're going to start with is going to be this big giant, this is the one with the bow on it. When I show you here on the video, I'm going to show you just on one cookie, but when you guys go to do it, you're going to outline both cookies, and then you're going to flood both cookies. Oh, that is a very loud train out there. So again, you're going to outline both and then cut your hole bigger to flood. I'm only going to show you on one. So go ahead and start massaging your white icing. The white icing is way thinner of a consistency than what you've been working with so far. So it's going to come out faster. So the reason I'm telling you this is because we want to mix this one more, and we also want to cut our holes smaller to start, just until we get a feel of that icing. So my seam is centered, I flatten the tip, I'm going to take my white icing, just cut the tip, and we're going to outline this cookie. I'm just going to cut a little bit more. Remember, it's better to cut too small. So make sure you watch this step first before you go and do what I had to start the hearts. Okay, so my tip is touching here. I lift up, and I like to go as close to the edge of the cookie as I can go. And now my tip goes down. Kind of up and down, up. And remember, if you mess up here, you can use that scribe tool to wipe off whatever you messed up on and start again. But just remember, the outline does not need to be perfect. You just want to have it closed so that when we fill the cookie in, there's a kind of a wall to prevent spillage. So my tip touches, I lift here, tip touches, lift. So you're going to outline both cookies, and then you're going to fill in both cookies. So if I were to fill this cookie in with this little hole, it would take too long. So I'm actually going to cut the hole bigger. I'm going to show you how to do that. Just a little bit bigger. It doesn't need to be too much bigger, but make sure both cookies are outlined before you cut your hole. Now I'm going to fill these cookies in. Now, instead of lifting like we did when we were outlining, we're actually going to almost touch our tip to the cookie, almost dragging the tip, but not quite. on the cookie, and I'm squeezing. You're especially going to hold this tape closed now because we're going to be putting more pressure on the bag than before. But for this large cookie, I actually like to flood from top to bottom because it is so large. You have to move quickly because you don't want the icing to crust on you. But I go section by section here. And if you notice, as I'm flooding, I'm not leaving any holes. I don't want to have to come back with my scribe tool and spread this icing around. I want to spread it around mostly with the tip of my bag. That is why you need to have close contact with your tip onto the cookie, because then you can direct where you want that icing to go. So once you're done outlining the hearts, you're going to outline both of these white cookies and then cut your hole bigger and flood both of these. Once it's flooded, before you move on to your next cookie, you want to make sure icing isn't spilling over. If it is, it's a very quick and easy fix. I'm going to show you how to do that. But all you do is you just take your scribe tool and you go around the edge. But if you don't see, I had some coming off. But if I go to my next cookie and then I don't realize the first cookie spilling over, well, this one's having a fun time, then it's going to be too crusted. If I go to swipe it off, it's going to crack the surface. So you're going to just go ahead, and once you're done outlining those hearts, you're going to flood both of these, outline and flood both of these cookies, and then you'll go back to your hearts, which I'm going to show you now. So go ahead and pause this, and then come back to me when you have these flooded and set those aside. So I'm back to my hearts. The outline has crusted. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill these hearts in. So what I'm going to do is, just like we flooded the white, I'm going to almost touch my tip to the parchment, and I'm going to fill this in. This isn't as loose of an icing though. This is definitely a thicker icing. It's going to need a little bit more work for you to smooth over. You have to kind of jiggle your tip in there and smooth it out. So my tip is touching, it's lifted just a touch, and I'm squeezing quite hard here and making this nice and puffy. Okay, so I'm squeezing and jiggling, and as I finish this and it's nice and puffy, I'm slowly bringing my tip up and kind of jiggling that surface. And you can even come with your scribe, if you have any peaks, hold it like a pencil and kind of just jiggle just the surface. You don't want to dig that scribe in there. Once all 4 of these hearts are filled in, you're going to start your roses, which I'm going to show you right now. You want to set this in front of a fan if you can. If not, let it dry for hours. The fan will definitely speed up the drying process. And if you don't want to do this, you can actually make hearts directly on the dried cookie once it's dried enough. So that is an option too. I just like to make them ahead of time so that I can really puff them up and that they're all the same shape. So once those hearts are filled in, you're going to add your roses, and all it is do these dots here. So what I do is I touch my tip and I squeeze, 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 squeeze until I get the size dot that I want. You want it really puffy. Squeeze, 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 release the pressure, then lift. And you want 6 of these. Bring this paper down and do the last 3. Tip almost touches, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. I leave the tip where it's at the whole time until I'm done with the dot, and then I release the squeeze and then lift up my tip. So you should get nice plump dots here. So I'm going to stick these in a dehydrator right now, but go ahead and work on those and then come back to me. So I have my white cookies set aside. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to outline and flood both of these cookies, starting with our lips. So you want to make sure that you massage your dark pink. So there's a dark pink and a light pink here. We're going to start with the light pink, but I want you to, while you're watching me, give your dark pink a really good massage, because this is a similar consistency to our white that we just used. The pink is a bit thicker. So this is probably going to look white here on the screen, but I promise you it's light pink. But I'm going to cut like I've been cutting and squeeze this pink icing on here. So inside of the mouth is light pink. And what I'm doing is I'm just squeezing some icing down. It's better to paint more than you need, just like a bigger area than you need. But I'm just using that paintbrush. You want it thin. You really don't want a very thick layer. So you can wipe off any excess icing, but you definitely want to do like a wider area than you think you need. It's really important that once you're done doing this, so you want it just to where you don't see cookie underneath, okay? If it's too thick, this is going to take too long to dry. So just a really thin area, just like that. I'm going to set this aside to just let it crust for a few minutes while we work on the hearts. So with the heart, what you want to do is you're going to take your template and your little marker. And what's really important with this one is you need to place the heart exactly where you want it and try your best to get it to stay there while you're outlining the heart. So I'm going to take this edible marker here, pop it open, and you don't need to press down hard on this marker. This can just be a really light drawing around this template here. It does not need to be perfect, but you want to be careful because anywhere the scallops are going to be empty and cookie's going to show. So you don't want black marker on there. So just a light layer, a light little drawing on there. So is your dark pink massaged real well? Make sure it is before you do this part. So once that's drawn, you can outline the heart. So when I'm outlining this heart, I'm going to keep any of the black outline inside of the heart. I'm either going to do my best to trace it exactly or leave any black inside of the heart because everything inside of this heart is going to be covered with icing. So any black I want to keep on that inside. You can always wipe off if you need to. So there we go. And I'm going to wait just a few minutes for this to crust. You can tell when something's crusted, it's not as glossy. So go ahead and work on that, and then we'll come back to this. Once this light pink has crusted, we're going to go ahead and outline the lips. I'm just going to let the heart outline crust as well. And to outline this, I'm going to start right here at this end. And I'm lifting, going as close to the edge as I can go. And then go tip down right here. And I am going to make a little U where that lip is. So I'd rather do a wider U than like a more narrow U. It depends on what kind of look you're looking for. But there's my U, and then I'm going to connect this and connect this one. So there's our top lip, and then our bottom lip. I'm going to outline the outside first. Okay, and then the inside kind of goes down a little bit. When I put my tip down here, I'm looking at this little bottom part, and then this one as well. Then I'm going to come back to my heart while we let this outline crust, and I'm going to fill in the heart. Now you can cut your hole bigger. I'm going to see what it's like with this size hole and see if I can, yeah, it's fine. I don't need to cut this one bigger, but I'm just going to flood this heart. This is with our dark pink, the pink icing bag that has more icing in it. Okay, and you can even pick this one up and give it a little shake. Should just smooth out because of that loose icing. And then I'm going to fill in the lips. So I'm going to start with the bottom lip. And I'm actually going to flood both sections of the lips so we can get all of these crusting. And this is where a fan would be great, or you can take a little break right now while you're allowing these to crust for a bit. Maybe have a snack. That's the beauty of doing these at home, is you can really just take your time on them. So there's this one. And we will be doing details on this lip, so it's going to really make them more defined. But just make sure those outlines crust before you flood. And you should be good to go. So when I have you look up again, when I have you guys, when these are all crusted, we're going to start some details on our cookie. So that's why you want to give these a bit of time to crust before coming back to them. Alrighty, thanks guys. So guys, funny story, I did not record all the last stuff that I showed you that I thought I was recording. So I'm going to show you the bow on this cookie that did not dry right because I didn't have it in front of a fan. But this is the bow we're going to create. So as soon as your white icing has crusted, we're going to create this bow. And I'm going to show you that right now. So just let your cookies crust for a while. The fan really does help. This white was not under a fan, whereas this white was, and so you can see the difference by just putting it in front of a fan. This one was just a mess and spilling over, but I do want to show you that bow. So what I'm going to do is I start here, make sure I'm recording, I am, and I'm going to start with like a little kind of square in the center of where the bow is going to be. Then I'm going to use the shape of this cookie as my guide of where these little loops go. So I stop right here. I don't stop, but I begin my curve right where these edges are. So I'm lifting. This is with our light pink icing. And what's nice about this is you guys can pause this over and over and over again, replay it until you understand. But right here is where our ribbon is going to go. So I like to start here right at this indent. Okay, I don't want to go further than that because I don't want my hearts to go over it. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of lifting up, going back up to this little edge of that square, and I will do that on this side as well. Lift up, and then we'll do little pointy tip lifts and touches, lifts and touches. Okay, here's the next one right at this indent, and it's helpful to kind of look at the picture to kind of see how wavy it is. Again, you just don't want it where those cherries are going to be. And if your cookie has crusted enough, if you mess up, you can very, very carefully wipe it off. This is with the light pink, so it's not going to show as much. But now I'm going to do these final little details where I'm lifting and meeting back at that edge of the square. All right, so once you're done with that, once this has fully crusted that outline, now you can fill it in, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Here we go. So you want to make sure that outline is crusted so that it holds its shape. I'm going to take that light pink and fill it in. Now this light pink is thicker, so it is going to take a little more effort on your part to smooth it over. You want it nice and puffy, and I'm only going to do the light pink sections. So this top part of the ribbon, I'm going to do this side as well. Okay, and then I want to do the ribbon part. really hope I'm recording. I'm very scared that I am not. It's raining today, so the air is just colder. So it's taking these a little bit longer to crust than I would like. But I do appreciate the rain and love it so much. I love being home when it's raining and just watching it. I'm not like too big of a fan of driving in it since there's always traffic, but so you'll fill that in as soon as that outline. Look how puffy that is, so pretty. So go ahead and work on that, let those crust, use that fan, and then come back over. I'm going to show you the first details of your heart, which is that scallop edge. So our blue is already open, but check your hole. If it's too small of a hole, you're going to have issues with this curling. So maybe make sure your hole is nice, a nice size, and not curling on you. But I start here in the middle. I lift up using that shape. That's my guide of where each scallop is. As I'm lifting, when I get over here, my tip touches the edge of that pink of the heart. So I'm lifting, going around. Each scallop is its own scallop. I'm just going to go all the way around. When I get to the bottom here, I kind of like to center it and go all the way around. Right. Once that's done, you can go to your lip. And now anytime I'm moving this, I need to be extra careful not to put my finger in those scallops that I just made. But I want to show you the first part of our detail on our lips, which is going to be outlining it again in red. So I'm making sure there's no crusties on there. But what I'm doing is my tip touches here, I lift, and I'm just going to re-outline these lips. If you have any edible glitter at home, these are really, really pretty with some glitter on them. Lift up, tip touches, lifting, tip touches, all the way around the cookie. And just like when we outlined originally, that's she just got some, filler today. So she's nice and plump. Once you're done with that, you can do your writing on the cookie, which I would definitely practice this on a paper towel first. But what I do is I almost touch my tip to the cookie. I'm almost dragging it, and I'm just gonna create little letters here, XO, XO. Barely squeezing. Highly recommend practice a few things of writing before you go to your cookie. But I'm almost dragging my tip, squeezing very gently to create those letters. You can write anything on there. So many people put different things. Even on the heart, you can also write on it as well, and it looks cute. But we're gonna go ahead and grab our transfers, and I'm gonna show you the final steps to our cookies. So the lips are the first cookies that we finished. I just grabbed this out of the dehydrator. It is, again, gonna take a while for these to crust. So if this is at least the hearts, if that's something you want to do later on in the evening or day, definitely want that to crust all the way before applying them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently peel off these little hearts. See how they're just a little wet still underneath? Now these are not hearts, these are dots, these little dots. You can also do these directly on the cookie, the dots, just like how I showed you on the transfer. But you just want to make sure that these dots have crusted before you do the details. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply, and I just got crust on here, let's see. 3 little dots to glue these bigger dots on. And the beauty of this is these are crusted and we can put them right up against each other. We don't have to let anything crust. Whoa. So they're all on there. And now I'm going to do that little heart detail, or not heart detail, sorry, swirl detail. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to see if I can get closer. My tip is touching here, and I squeeze, lifting just a little bit. I'm going to do a circle, and then once that circle is created, I'm going to drag my tip down to the edge and go around one more time. Now if your hole is too big, this is another thing you want to test out before you go to your cookie. You can rebag your icing for this. Mine is borderline almost too thick. Tip touches the middle, I go around making one circle, then I'm dragging the tip all the way to the edge and going around one more time. And then lastly for this cookie, we're going to create little leaves. So what I'm doing is my tip is just barely touching the cookie, squeeze, 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 making a dot, and then slowly dragging my tip closer to the cookie. So I'm just dragging down. Again, practice this before you go to your cookie. You can even make a dot, like 2 dots, and then take your scribe tool, which I think I threw mine out, but I'm going to take this one, and you can even just drag that to a point. One thing I did in class that's not on the set, I added a little pink dots right around the cookie, just like this. I touch my tip to the cookie, I squeeze gently, and then before I lift up my tip, I release the pressure a little bit. So tip touches, squeeze, and I thought this was cute, so that's something if you want to add. I'm using the light pink because everything else is a little too loose of an icing. Okay, and then one last cookie to show you, which is going to be our cherry cookie. Here's our bow, it's crusted a bit. I'm going to add little stems where my cherries are going to go. So my tip touches, I lift, going up the cookie. Tip touches, and up. I'm going to add some dots on here, and this is something too. You can make, if your hearts aren't dry enough, you can go directly on the cookie and make some hearts. But I have my hearts here. What I'm going to start off by doing is kind of peeling the edge of the heart first before just peeling this whole thing off. But I want to lift up the edges, and then I'm just going to very gently pull this off and set it on the cookie gently. Same with this one. Let's lift the edges, separate them from the paper so that you don't have to pull too hard on the heart, and then just carefully pull that off and set it on your cookie. And they can kind of overlap each other a little bit. And the very last thing is the little extra detail on here with the dark pink. Now this is optional. Actually, people in class did the light pink with this part, and I thought it actually looked really cute. I'm going to do what the picture shows, but you can fill in the rest of this bow as soon as it's crusted. The light pink does also look really cute with it. But there you go. There's our cookies. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming. I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day, and I hope to see you next time. I am hopefully going to offer a St. Patty's Day class and a little dog class with a tennis ball, so hopefully I'll see you there. Have a great day. Bye.